stuff.
I hear you. I hear you. If it was a normal day and you could go anywhere, Nate, where would you go?
Probably to my, probably the library.
The library. Excellent. Okay, beautiful. Analia, can we come to you?
Sure.
Tell me what you like to do. Tell me stuff. What do you like to do?
Recently, I've been listening to a lot of vinyls.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've been very into that. I recently got into art just because, not that good at it, but it's something to do. And I've been into like decorating my room a lot. I just painted this wall.
That looks great.
Wow.
Thank you.
You know, it's like, I think one of the things, whatever kind of creative pursuit you have, I think daydreaming is super important. Like just having space in your head to daydream and think about stuff. And that's what this period feels like to me, just like the chance to do art, even if you're not like Picasso, or play the guitar, even if you're not Dylan. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just permission to do all the stuff you never have time, or you're distracted and can't really do. Maggie, what do you like to do?
Well, lately I've been going canoeing with my brother and my dog.
Is that what, yeah, and currently, as we speak.
Yes, I'm doing active right now. But I've been listening to music and singing.
That's beautiful. Does being out on the water make you like calm?
Yeah, I love it. It's so peaceful.
And where do you go canoeing? Where do you go?
So we're at my lake house in Alabama, which is on Lake Weiss.
Beautiful. That's great. That's fortunate. Super, super cool. Rachel, what have you been doing in this quarantine crazy?
A lot of baking. Oh my gosh.
What have you been making?
So many desserts. Apple crisps, pecan pie, homemade chocolate chip cookies.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I found this thing yesterday. There's a woman named Christina Toasty who's a great storyteller. If you guys just ever want to hear a woman who like really knows how to tell great stories, and she decided she was like a super type A, hard charging person, and she was going to business school, and the thing that she really loved was baking. All the women in her family, her mother worked full time, they were all working women, but they baked, and it was just a part of every day. They would have dessert, and she was like, if I could do one thing the rest of my life, I want to bake cookies every single day of my life. So she has this incredibly famous bakery in New York that's now all over the country called Milk Bar, and every day at 2:00 on Instagram, she calls it Bake Club, and she bakes with you. And like yesterday, she made brown butter vanilla wafers. And let me just say, when this is over, I'm going to be going and making some brown butter vanilla wafers, because later on today, she's going to put them in a banana pudding. And I'm like, I
love banana pudding.
Oh my God. So I love that idea. I don't want to eat it all, but I like it. I like the idea of that.
Yeah. That's the problem. Once I bake it, then it's all there to be eaten, you know?
Oh, it's so good. I've been leaving it for some of my neighbors, you know.
That's a good plan.
Yeah. I don't know if they really want it, but at least I get it out of the house.
So I guess we can start talking about playwriting, if that's okay.
Sure.
With everybody. So Denise, I've been a fan of yours for a super long time. I was trying to think about it, and I think the short story of Michael Fish was our first production, and I got to stage manage it, and and Emma was in it. Yeah,
Emma, who's in her bedroom right there right now.
Oh,
home from New York, back in her childhood room, losing her mind. Yeah. That's right. That was such a sweet experience.
Oh, it's such a sweet play. I love that play. But I love, I'm like super fan. I'll try not to be too geeky, but
I think it's really kind.
I think the last one I got to see was Troubadour.
That's the last one I did.
Well, there you go. Mm-hmm. So I've been a fan for a while, and that's why, and I was like, my students did a survey, and I said, who would you like to talk to? Like, what kinds of careers, theater careers, are you interested in? And several of them said playwright. And so I was like, well, what playwright could we talk to? And I thought of you. So thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk to us.
Sure. My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
So we collected questions a while back, and one of the questions was, what inspired you to write plays?
So I was probably working at the Alliance Theater like 3 years out of school, 3 years out of college. And there was a woman at the time, her name was Sandra Deer, and she was a playwright. And she said to me, I was doing PR at the time, and she said, is there something you want to do? I think you should have a bigger dream than what you're living right now. And I was like, well, I think I should go back to school and get a master's degree. I think if I want to be as successful as I hope to be, I need another degree. And I knew that if I was going to go to school at night, because I was working full-time during the day, it better be something I really wanted to do, or I would flake out. And I would be like, I'm too tired, I don't want to go. So I got a degree in screenwriting because I love movies. Are you guys into movies? I love movies, and I love movies in a different way than I love plays. Like when I go see plays and people forget their lines, or I went to a play once and they were making a sandwich and the lead character cut her finger with a knife on stage and started bleeding all over. And you could see her like starting to spin and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I hate this so much. I'm losing my mind. I like the safety of film because it's perfect and no one's going to bleed out on the stage. So I decided to go back and I started working on the screenwriting degree, and I completed that degree, and I had to write several screenplays during that course, or those couple of years. And the last one was a story about meeting my husband. And Kenny Leon was the artistic director at the time, and he read that script and he said, if you adapt it to the stage, we will do it. Because one of the writers that I really admire, her name is Marsha Norman, she says, you should write the secrets that only you know. Like, what is it that you know about Analia? What is it that you know about Emily that nobody else knows? Because you can never compare yourself. You can never be, I'm not Lauren Gunderson, I'm not Shakespeare, I'm not this person. You just have to be your own person. And it's like your experience is so unique to you. So I had to really think about, okay, what is it that I know? I know what it is to have fallen in love with my husband and all of the crazy swirl around that. So I wrote it, and Kenny Land said, if you adapt it for the stage, we will do it. And I was like, are you kidding me? And he was like, no, we'll do it. And so that's kind of how it started is I had just had my daughter Emma, and I was at home and I was losing my mind and didn't really know who I was. So it became something I could hold on to. I'm going to write, I'm going to do this. And the first time that they did my play at the Alliance Theater, I mean, it was like every person I'd met in my life, like my high school homeroom teacher was in the audience. My gynecologist was in the audience. Like every single person I ever knew, my third grade best friend was in the audience, And so that was very claustrophobic and kind of insane. But I was like, wow, this is much more accessible. The movie industry is different now. It's really here in Atlanta. But if I wanted to tell stories, it felt like the theater was the most accessible way for me to tell stories. And so I would just look for things that I was like a kid and stop thinking about, or something would happen in my life, or I would read something, or I'd hear something, and it would just be permission to fall down a hole and daydream, right?
So sorry, my mom has picked now to print some stuff, so my printer's very loud.
Okay.
I might have to change rooms. I really loved how in your story, like somebody called you out into your calling, like called you, like there's more dream. And I love that that people can do that for each other, and I think that's a beautiful part of your story. I'm going to move.
Okay.
Loud. All right, so while I'm moving, maybe I can do two things at once. So you did mention that you went to college for playwriting. Do you think that it's necessary to be a successful playwright?
You know, I don't know about you guys, but there are some people who really know what they want to do. Like really from a really young age. Oh, I want to be an accountant. Oh, I really want to help people with their finances. I just followed what seemed exciting and what felt joyous. And so I went back to school to get a degree in communications. Screenwriting was in that degree, but like the degree I was going to advertise to the world in my like professional development was communication. But what would I love to do? What would I love to do? Right. I never had a plan. It was always just like, this feels like the right thing. I think I learned some things. I don't think you have to go to a 2-year school, you know, to a 2-year program or 4-year program, but I do think you need either to be really self-taught and go out and find those books. There's a Sid Field book on how to structure a story and getting that kind of constant feedback and that structure of, we had to turn in 10 pages of a script every week. So in 12 weeks, I had a complete script, and that structure was really important, and that constant feedback. Don't have to, but it was certainly helpful to me to get the instruction. And then I found a mentor. I had a professor that I loved, and he taught me literally at Georgia State 9 of my 12 classes in my graduate program. So I'm still in touch with him today. He was at that first show, you know, and he was the first person that said, I really think you can do this. And I was like, I think I love you. So, you know, I mean, sometimes people can see us more clearly than we can see ourselves. And so that was really, you're looking for those signs like you're in the right path, sort of.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think, what choices have you made that have helped you in your career as a playwright?
What choices have I made? I chose I happily married a really supportive man.
He's super sweet.
and it matters, because for a long time, you know, the thing about being a playwright is Janice, never support myself as a playwright. That's something that I do, that I've always done. But I have what I call bread and butter jobs, where I'll do marketing or branding or PR. And I've really shifted some in the last couple of years to do more focus on being an entrepreneur than even being on a playwright, because my current work is really about helping other people tap into their story and recognize, how do you tell your story? Are you thoughtful about the stories that you tell to the world and you tell to yourself? And how do you craft a story and that kind of stuff? So that's been exciting. I forgot the question, Rachel. It went off in my head. Tell me.
No, it's okay. So you said, I said, what choices did you make that in your
right,
career?
Bill.
And you said, yeah, a supportive spouse. Yes.
Yeah. So part of it was finding a partner that was going to be cool with the fact that I'm going to be like really committed over here now, and now I'm going to be overcommitted over here, and my financial might be like this, or it might be like this, and we don't know. And it's an exciting ride. And are you up for the adventure of that? Choices that I made. I befriended.
I'm on a meeting.
I'm really careful about my friends and the people that I let read my material early. Hi. So I am really thoughtful about who directs, who reads, who gives me feedback, my trusted people, my circle, who I don't listen to, who I think's bananas, but I just do that kind of situation. I think my circle, I think it's really been investing in relationships that have been the same. I'm close with the same people I've been at my whole life. Kenny Leon, who was the artistic director then, is still one of my best friends, and he's shepherded me along. So I think picking the right people to be friends with, following your heart that way, and then really investing in those friendships and trusting them and knowing not who to listen to. That's big. That's big, Rachel. Who not?
It's very important. It's very
big.
important.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Oh, so many opinions. And you let the wrong ones in. And it doesn't always mean like not negative opinions, but they should always be constructive or helpful. But
everybody has an idea about how your story should be told, right? And so, but you don't have the same sensibility as people necessarily. So who are like-minded people that you trust?
Agreed. So going forward on that a little bit, what's your preferred genre of writing? Which I think I could answer this, but
What would you say?
well, to me, it's realistic fiction, because your stories are so heartfelt and human, and very much on the level of being a person. That would be my guess.
I would say that too. I mean, okay, here's my thing. I am a white woman writing stories in the South. Those are not always welcome when I send them in to be considered in New York. And so I had to really make peace with the fact that I was writing for my community. Okay. And so my goal, what gives me the greatest rush, is to write about people I know. A little bit of this person, a little bit of that person. So Annalia, when you come see one of my plays, maybe you'll see a part of yourself in one of my characters, and you'll go, oh, I know the world of this play, and these people feel so familiar, and I see myself. And then there's a different level of connection, and you love it in this solely different way. Kenny Leon taught me something that from the very first time I started writing that I believe wholeheartedly, and I use it in my work now, is that the more specific you write, the more specific, the more universal. So the people believe that you're supposed to write really broadly so that everybody can relate to it. But if you are a first generation, and this is your experience, and your grandmother makes this, and she uses pink and green baking sheets, and you roller skate down the street, and you've got 16 dogs, whatever it is the specifics that are unique to you that make your story universal. So I am looking to create stories that have deep roots in red clay, Southern stories. They're not all Southern. Sometimes they're in a place, not descript, but it's always the South, and it's pretty much always Atlanta. But they told me to get your stuff produced, don't say it's Atlanta, say it's a major urban metropolis, right? But I am a third generation Atlantan. My daughter is a fourth. So for me, I love this community, and we're really interesting, and we're complicated, and I really want to write a lot of women, a ton of women, and some men, but I really want to write about this community, for my community.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. The more specific you are, the more universal you are.
Great.
Absolutely. So when you're wanting to create something, write a script, write a play, is there a place that sparks your creativity?
No. Do you know what a baleen whale is? A baleen whale? Okay. So when Emma was little, she had to do a social study, a science project, and in the kitchen, she made this, what do you call it? Paper mache baleen whale. And the thing about a baleen whale is they have a mesh almost at the front of their mouth, and they take in all the water, gallons and gallons of water, and it's almost like the strainer in your kitchen.
Right.
All the water falls out, and they hold on to this little krill, and that's what they eat. And that's how I walk through life, is taking in all the water, and until something goes, that's really interesting. That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or one time, Bill and I were driving around North Carolina. We've gone up to Nashville to hear some music, and we were in a place called Franklin, Tennessee, and I saw this big old brick building, and on the outside it said dry cleaner / refrigerated fur vault. And I was like, stop the car. I want to go in and see what a refrigerated fur vault is, right? And I ended up, and it was a big lock, and she opened it up, and there was a 2-story, it hadn't worked in a long time, but a 2-story open space with one thing hanging in it, an old wedding dress hanging up way high. And I was like, oh, this is a story should happen in this refrigerated fur vault in North Carolina. So that happened, or somebody will tell me a story, or I'll have a fight with my husband, or my kid will say something interesting, and it just starts the what if, and then you can't go to sleep tonight, and that's an awesome thing.
Right. So how long does it take you to write a full-length play, approximately?
A long time to write it well. I can vomit the first draft, I can vomit, and that's a really helpful thing if you guys are thinking about writing, is I know so many people who think it has to be really good the first time you write it. So they write a paragraph, and then they go back and revise, and then they write it, and so they never they never get going. Where I have found that if I can just vomit out a draft, even if it's terrible, even if literally it'll be 22 drafts later as the draft I use, then I have something that I can work with and improve, and then it takes shape. So that's what matters to me, is just not being a perfectionist, because it'll stop you, but just giving you permission to just not know where you're going. And I mean, I like to have some idea of where I'm going. A lot of people don't. I find if I don't, I kind of wander in the desert for 40 years. But if I have some kind of endpoint in mind, then I can just delight myself and go.
Same. I'm so much like, get the first draft and then do stuff. Don't edit while you go. It will kill you.
No, it's so demoralizing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different part of your brain too. It's the creative versus the like really clinical part of your brain. You don't
Right.
want that part on.
Right. So what is your writing process, or how do you organize your writing?
I am not I don't have a process. I fall in love with an idea, and okay, so let me just tell you this little story. Okay. Hi, Sophia. I haven't gotten to say hi to you. So hello, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of this. Okay, so I grew up in this family where big family dinners, and around the table would be mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brothers, boy, cousin, me. But where I should be seated, there was always an empty chair, because in my family, I was taught little girls were to be seen and not heard. And so I would try all during dinner to find some way to contribute to the conversation. And my mom would pinch me on the thigh under the table and tell me to shush. And I would finally wolf down my dessert, give up, slide down the back of the table. And underneath my Aunt Elnora's dining room table, she had this epic, literally, it was amazing, white bearskin rug, like a gorgeously delicious bearskin rug. And so I would be under the table and I would curl up on my side and I would listen to the grown-ups, because there's a decade between me and my next brother. So I'm the youngest and the only girl. So I would sit and I would listen, and I could hear the glug, glug, glug when they would pour the coffee and their forks on the plate. And I would hear my parents tell stories of my grandmother's midnight elopement when she was 16 years old. She ran away with a divorcee who was 32 years old. They told stories of when my grandmother got in a fist fight with her sister-in-law in downtown Atlanta. They told stories about when my dad, who was so skinny and had like elephant ears and a borrowed suit way too big, came to woo my mother, and he'd hired a one-eyed man to drive my mother around because he thought a chauffeur would make them really like exotic and wonderful. So I listened to all these banana stories, and I took all of those stories and I became a playwright. My first character in my very first play stood at the edge of the stage. Her name was Rachel Solomon, and she said, "In my family, stories are passed down like fine china from one generation to the next. When I write, I believe I have to hear my characters. I don't envision the world. I hear the world. And I think it's because I spent all the time under the table. So I was always listening. And so there was in this musical Troubadour, I could not start writing till I could hear his voice. And I would like I have images, like we have all this stuff, like costume sketches and all this material and all these books. And I was like, I can't hear him. And then I met with Elisa Carlson, is a super generous dialect coach. And I was like, help me understand what a Russian tailor in the South in the 1950s would sound like. And I would say it again. And I recorded her, and it wasn't until I could hear him, because the rest were Southern and I could hear their voices, but he was the main character for me. And then once I could hear him, I could write. So I have to hear my characters before I start.
Wow. I think that kind of answers my next question, which was, how do you mimic natural dialogue? Or so to you hear it.
That part's not hard for me. Mm-hmm. What's hard for me is I know what I want to talk about. I know the people, but I don't always have the story. Like it might be, I want to write about the bedazzling of country music in 1951 by a Russian Jewish tailor with insane ideas of what the American dream should sound like and look like. That before that, they were, these like very somber clothing when they would perform, black and brown and gray. And then he came in and was like roses and sparkles and green and just sherbet colors and went bananas. And I was like, that's what I want to wrap my head around and get deep into. And that was sparked because we went to Nashville and we went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, and we were looking at a display of costumes, and you can see right when the moment happened, it was like somber, white shirt, string tie, and then like craziness. And I was like, what happened right here? So it's that baleen whale thing again of like, and then I bought a big, huge book on the way home, and that's all I was like, listen to this. And then you go to sleep and you say, tell me stories,
Right.
and you wake up and you know a little more.
Yeah, I did dramaturgy for Troubadour with one of the high schools, and like just loved researching all of the costumes and the
Crazy fun, right?
amazing stuff and like who he designed for. Anyway, I know that's off topic, but
Can I tell you a crazy
so
thing?
fascinating.
Listen to this, Rachel. So I have no sewing skills. Like I made a quilt once for Emma. So I'm like, you know what? It is time to make a mask. Everybody's making masks. I'm going to make a mask, right? And I'm like, where is my sewing machine? And my sewing machine that I inherited from one of my mother's or grandmother's friends was the sewing machine, because it was from 1951. It was used in the musical, right? So I had not pulled out this sewing machine since the show closed like 3 years ago or something. So I pull it out, and the whole time I've had it, it's never been put away correctly. So the foot, which is the thing you smush down on your foot and it makes it go, was like put away properly and locked in a box. I was like, I can't get it out of here. So I literally had my foot in the box of the sewing machine box that it came in, trying to sew with the rest of it up here. I was like, I gave up. We ordered it online, but I was like, oh my God. So that was super spazzy.
I don't think I've ever put the foot of my sewing machine away right either. I always just stick it in the hole.
That's exactly right.
Like right there. Like
everything was all snapped in, and it was like, oh my God, it was real.
Yes. Okay. So have you ever had writer's block? And if so, how have you overcome it?
I would never call it writer's block. There are just times I don't know where to go yet. And it's just like, you have to just wait till it comes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything. If you're like thinking you don't know what school you want to go to, and you get answers, and a time will come when you know.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be patient, and can't freak out, and can't be you can, but it's not helpful. And and I don't write if there's not something that I'm really excited to write about. I can journal, I can, write about what it is to be in isolation right now. But for me, it feels like catching a story, like it lives and you get the chance. And so you have to wait till one comes to you, is what I think. But that doesn't mean that you can't practice writing all the time, but like to really commit 2 years to something, you have to really be in love with it.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you get your shows produced at a theater?
Been super, super fortunate. The first play was Kenny Leon read the thing that I wrote in grad school and said, we're going to do it. And I was like, and then my best friend directed it, a guy named Lawrence Keller. And it was so fraught. Crazy. The night before we opened, Kenny Leon was like, I hate all of your transitions between the scenes. You have to stay up all night and fix them. So we were both vomiting. And there's lots of those kinds of fix it. We got to do this. You got to stay up all night, whatever. So that started it at the Alliance Theater. And then when Kenny left, Susan Booth, and she kind of carried on with me, and she commissioned me to write some pieces. And it's just been my artistic home. When right after Kenny left, there was an interim where I did a little bit of work at the Horizon Theater. The thing about Atlanta is they are really responsive to people who want to do work, and the Horizon has a high school playwriting group, and they have a college playwriting group. I don't know what it's called, but so that they are, unlike other communities that are really closed and how do you get in there, I think I think people want to support each other and want to give, if people are good, want to give people the chance to try and do this. And there's a thing called Working Title, which is a playwriting group. And there's all kinds of, I think you have to just make yourself known at a theater, volunteer. And I mean, it's different right now because it's kind of a crazy time, but it's also a time where if you write something, you can put it on YouTube and put it out there and push it out, right? Or you can get a group of friends. I've gone to right here in the house, Zoom readings of pieces of work because everybody's available right now.
Right.
So I think there's in some way not as many obstacles to sharing your work if you feel brave about that, you know?
Yeah. It's true. So let me see. I think we only have a couple questions left.
Okay.
Have you ever not liked how a play turned out when it was staged?
Ugh. Yes.
Should I ask which one?
Well, I wrote a play I didn't really love. And it kind of went on without me. Like it kind of went on. And I actually went to see it, and I went with my daughter and my husband. And usually, when you go to theater and something's good, you know how you're kind of like, "This is really fun. We're having a great time." And no one was looking. Like neither of them would make eye contact with me, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this is bad. It's really bad." And it was really bad. And afterwards, when it was over, they were like, the artist, the cast really wants you to go back and say hello. And I was like, oh my God. And it was, I just didn't like the play. It wasn't them. And I went back to see them. Instead of saying that was awesome, out of my mouth came that was awful. Like, and I was just horrified and then I like had to backtrack as quick. I mean, I had such a full body response to that it was like, and I never let anybody produce that play ever again. That was the first and only time that it was ever done. Yeah, no. And then there are times where there was a theater I love very much in Seattle who did my work. And I went out there. They did a play of mine called Brownie Points about a group of mothers of first grade girls who go on a brownie overnight and race becomes an issue. And the question I started with was, what was more powerful, the shared experience of women raising their daughters or the divisiveness of race? So this is set obviously in Atlanta, right? And so I went out to see, they were in final dresses before they were going to have their first preview. And I got there and their conception of what Southern women were like, these women had on like fuchsia tracksuits that were bedazzled, and they had like big done hair, like curl, because that's what they think Southerners, big curled hair and lots of makeup on. And I'm like, where are these women going? Like, and it started off really slowly. I was like, can her hair be in a ponytail? Can she not be in aqua? Can she just be like in Tevas and some like, gray pants going to the wood? Like these aren't Southern women going to the woods. These are just women going to the woods. And so it was like having to pull back the layers of, it's kind of like designing women, or I don't know what it was, but it was just some craziness, but they were super receptive. And that's happened like a bunch of times where you go places and you're like, what they think is Southern is a caricature and not.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like they're stuck in that 80s, like giant hair, velvet suit, whatever that stuff is. They did that at Horizon, right? Wasn't
No, they did that at Theatrical Outfit, and Jasper and Guy directed it. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Okay. So, all right. So how about what's your favorite show and why that you've written?
Oh, that I've written.
I know. I was like, oh, I forgot that prepositional phrase. That one's important.
Yeah. What is that? I would say my favorite moment. I'm going to say my favorite moment. So there's a play called The Geller Girls, and I loved it because I love the idea of sharing a story about our own community that so many of us don't know. That Piedmont Park, which people go to all the time, don't recognize that was the site for the Cotton States Exposition. And my favorite moment is at the top, I think it's the second act, it's been a long time, when one of the daughters climbs on a bicycle. And the costume designer made her these pantaloons that were huge, and they were plaid, and they were red and gold and white. So when she was very Lucille Ball, so she would like pull them apart when she was walking, and she's very skinny and tall, and they were really big. And then when you climbed on bicycles back then, it was scandalous because it was touching your nether regions, and women couldn't sweat, and they thought it would destroy your body and your life. And if a man saw you sweat, oh my God, and you might be able to not have children. And I mean, there was just craziness. And so watching the audience delighted in watching her climb on that bike. Her stepmother was losing her mind, this very traditional Southern woman, all buttoned up, and there's Courtney in these big pants climbing on and riding that bicycle. And her eyes when the bicycle seat touched her body she was just kind of like, oh my God. So there was a lot of hooting and hollering, and that was a super fun moment because I love Courtney as a performer so much. And I could watch that every single night.
Yeah.
I thought that was really fun. But it was fun because the costume designer added an element that wasn't there, and Courtney added an element. So what was fun was that the bettering over and over.
Yeah, that collaboration of and raising of the text. Yes. That's awesome. So as we've been talking, y'all, have any questions come up to your mind? Like maybe something in conversation has sparked some sort of interest in you, and if you'd like to ask something of Janice, this is your opportunity.
Ask me something, Emily.
I'm thinking about maybe doing something in like screenwriting or writing of some sort. What advice would you give to someone who would like to do that?
So, do you love to write?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you love to daydream?
Yeah.
Do you spend time daydreaming?
Yes.
Okay. What I love about being a writer is it's a transferable skill. So that if you become a strong writer, there's a million different things that you can do. You can, because you'll have a strong point of view, you could do marketing if you wanted to, you could do branding if you wanted to, if you have the skill of being a strong writer. I am of the firm belief that you follow what you love. Because when you love what you do, you draw people around you. They want to be around people who love what they do. It's not the drudgery. Emily, if you love writing, I just think make time for it, delight in it. I mean, the greatest thing about being a writer is that there are always people talking to you in your head. Do you know what I mean? Characters are always waiting for you. Stories are always waiting for you. When you go to sleep at night, they're the last people you think about. When you wake up in the morning, they're there to be with you, sometimes to tell you things you didn't know before. So I'm never lonely because I've always got a world inside me. And that is a gift for an entire lifetime. And if you follow what you love and you get to a point where you don't love it anymore, or you love something more, you can follow that. I just believe you're supposed to, if it resonates with you, follow what you really love. And play, do it right now. Don't wait for permission.
I have a question too. So how do you react?
Who's talking?
I'm Ruby.
Okay, can I see you, Ruby?
I'm the one without the
Oh, okay.
I don't have
okay, no problem.
camera.
No problem.
Okay, so how do you react to like from like different shows? Like how do you react to poorly written female characters? Including movies too.
I think that's why we need you. I mean, we can't. It's kind of like I have this thing where I say I'm supposed to stay on my yoga mat. It's like, what can I affect? I can't change that, but I can write really great characters that are really complex and really awful and wonderful and mean and kind, and so I think writing rich characters is what we can do, and powerful stories, and the kind of stories that, there's this woman that I love named Anne Lamott, and she has a great book on writing. Emily, you might want to get this book. It's called Bird by Bird. Do you know that book?
No.
I have a copy, Emily. I can lend it to you.
It's gorgeous. It's a great book. There's also a book by Natalie Goldberg called Writing Down to the Bones. It's really a good book too. That is a really, really delicious book. And it is permission to just start to just understand what it is that we can do. And what we can do is to add our voices and not wait for permission, and boldly talk about what it is that we know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that it's frustrating, and there are times that you're like, ugh, but that's why women have to write, because there's a different level of understanding, because we've lived it. It's the secrets that you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Instead of yelling at the dark, you light the candle.
I like that.
Yeah, it just like kind of infuriates me how like when somebody like tries to write a female character, but they end up like having either like being the perfect person or the one who has absolutely no personality. Like personally, like have you watched like Star Wars, like the last like Jedi or something? I think it was like the one with Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like it just kind of like makes me a little angry that like, in all honesty, I really think that she doesn't have a personality. Like she's like, so like I didn't really like her arc, you know, because like she just didn't have like anything to put out. Like all she was just this perfect person, but like it just it's just it's maddening.
But here's my hope for you, Ruby, is that let it be super maddening, and let it be like super empowering to be like, I can do it better. I can do it differently. I can do it where it's really going to resonate with the people that I care about. You know, there's going to be a generational shift, and you are a part of the shift. So get started, so you're going to be ready to step into that opportunity.
Yeah. So we're actually going to start a writing project. Janice, we're going to be writing a audio play.
A what? I'm sorry, you cut out.
An audio play. So what would have been a radio play, but of course it's not on the radio. It'll be on the internet. But so we're gonna do an audio play and produce it and make our own sound effects and stuff like that. So we're gonna.
That's amazing.
I know. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm trying to lean into the fact that we have to use technology right now instead of learning. So so I think it's going to be a fun project, and so we get to use all of these awesome guidelines or ideas that you've given us as we're working on our audio play. So
full permission. I mean, and if it's an audio play, it could take place, and I'm not suggesting this, but it could take place on the bottom of a swimming pool. It could take place on the moon. It's like any possibility, as opposed to when it's on stage. It was like the first play that I ever wrote, it included a story of a little boy, a 5-year-old, getting a raisin caught up his nose and jumping on the trampoline. And we literally had to do that on stage. Like that would have been so much better as an audio offering rather than. So it is permission to think like, what's the wildest or the simplest thing that I could do? That's so cool. I hope you guys share it with me.
Oh, we'll invite you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments?
I have one question. Okay. So, when you like write a show and it's going to be produced, how involved are you in the process of the actual show itself? Do you have the option to be involved or not?
So in the world premiere, production is different than subsequent shows, right? Because you're still working out a ton of stuff, and you can continue to work out as much as you want. But so the way that rehearsals work at the Alliance is I would write a piece, and then we would do a reading. We would sit in a rehearsal hall, just a room around tables, and we would read out loud. And then I would get notes from people in the room, and I would go back and I would make changes. And then we would kind of do that maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times, depending on how big the piece was. And then we would go into rehearsals, and rehearsals were usually about a month. And for a world premiere, I was there every single day, because there are changes on the spot. You make discoveries on the spot. It almost feels like a potato sack till you have your actor, and then you're tailoring, and then you're, oh, this person is funnier than the character I wrote. I can let it out here. I can add more humor here. And I have been where situations where it's like this person can't do it. They can't do it. So I'm gonna slim it down some here and expand it here. So I am making changes, and I make a ton of changes because I give myself permission to, if this is feeling weak, like you can feel it, you can, and I know Rachel, you can too. You're sitting in the rehearsal hall and you're like, it's working. The air's in the right. Ooh, air changed. We've lost it. And it's like, what happened right there? Okay, stop. And this is okay. And then you can go, ooh, okay, we're back on track. So this is the part. And then I go out of the room and I try something and I print it out and I bring it back in. And sometimes it's just as bad or sometimes it's worse. And then, so it's a lot of that kind of, and then there'll be times where I'll say to the actor, what would you really say here? I'm struggling. Because they've become to know their character more than I have. What would you say? Is that right? How would you approach putting a corset on a man in 1895? What would you do? Do it. Let me watch you do it. So that is a super present space because it is such a space of discovery. And then we rewrite totally during previews every night. Now we have an audience, so we watch the audience. There are notes after the show. I go back, I write the next morning. We start rehearsals at noon. We work from noon to 5. Then we do the show again. And so that's what we do it. And then opening night, you're frozen. You can't do anything else. But so like when the show did it, when the theater did it in Seattle, I went out for 2 days and all I changed was, could you take them out of the silly Southern clothes and make them look like normal women? I didn't do big changes in that. So once it goes on, if they want me to come because they want me to sell the show or do an audience talk back or, that kind of stuff, that's why I would go. But I didn't always go to another production because there was that trepidation of like, holy moly, please don't let them mess it up, but world premiere are always there every day that they're there.
Oh, all right, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
And Janice, if I could say, I just wanted to say you have a very collaborative style. When I got to be in the room for short story of Michael Fish, like just like you were saying, you were discussing with the cast and with Patrick, and I think you even let me throw a joke in there somewhere. So
I get the benefit of everybody's smarts in the room. Like anybody who says anything, I'm like, yes, say more. Because that's why I don't write books, because I don't want to be alone. I mean, playwriting is lonely till it's the 5 weeks that you get to go, do it there. But I love that kind of, where's the best idea in the room? Oh, and then when somebody else, when it comes from the corner, it's like, oh, you're a genius. I love you, So yeah, that's a fun part. That's a really fun part.
well,
You guys have been awesome.
They are. See, I told you they're the best.
You were right.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming to
My pleasure.
today. And this has been wonderful and enlightening. And I'm going to go back and listen to it and pull out all of the amazing quotes because it's such beautiful things.
Good to you.
Thank you so much. And we'll send you an invite to our audio play.
That would be amazing. You guys, thank you.
You guys want to say thank you to Janice?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you again for your patience for last time when I flubbed. So I'm really glad to be here. All right, you guys, do good
See
work.
most of you Wednesday. Bye, guys.
Bye.